So what a weekend it is for USC Trojan fans, as this weekend you played host to some of the nation's top prospects, but today, college football fans everywhere woke up to big news, as USC had pulled off a massive flip for one of the nation's top prospects. Five-star defensive lineman and former UGA commit Justus Terry has flipped from Georgia to USC, and of course, we have got to break it down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I've got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you surprised that Justus Terry flipped to USC? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, who is Justus Terry? Well, as I alluded to in the intro, he is one of the nation's most coveted prospects and one of the nation's top prospects regardless of position. If we look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, this is someone who comes in as a top 10 player, specifically the number 8 player in the nation, the number 2 defensive lineman, and the number 2 player in the state of Georgia, and he stands 6'5", 275 pounds. And this is someone, when you turn on the film, there's no shortage of things to love about his game. This is someone where every college in the nation would love to just get him in for a visit, let alone to add him a part of their recruiting class. Anytime you can get a guy with this ability, you do so, no questions asked. But in order for USC to pull off this flip, Coach Eric Henderson was a massive component. And when you look at Coach Henderson's history, it makes sense. This would be a compelling pitch. I want you to imagine you're a recruit. You're a prospect, a top prospect in all of high school football. You have several coaches entering into your living room, talking with you, talking with your parents about why you should go there. And then in comes a coach like Eric Henderson, someone who has played college football, someone who has played in the NFL and is now coaching both. That pitch is going to go something like this. Hey, I've been where you are. I've been sitting exactly where you are. I know what it takes to successfully transition from high school football to college football. I know what that grind looks like. I can help you with that. Not only do I know what that grind looks like, I know how to transition from college football to the NFL. I've done that. On top of that, I then coached college football, helped get people to the NFL, and then jumped to the NFL where, by the way, I got a Super Bowl ring and worked with names such as Aaron Donald. That is inherently a compelling pitch, one that if you put yourself in the shoes of the recruit, you can imagine that would move the needle. Being able to work with someone that understands what you're going through as a player, but also has been able to do so as a coach, that's massive. And it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to pay dividends for the USC Trojans, because this is something we talked about at the top of last season. So many of you USC fans asked me, do I think that the Trojans could win a national championship? And I have always laid praise at Lincoln Riley's offenses and what he's been able to do there. But my biggest question has always been, are you going to be a complete team? You don't have to have the number 1 defense in the nation, but you cannot forego defense and only rely on one side of the ball. In fact, since 2000, there's only been 3 teams ranked outside the top 30 scoring defenses in college football win a national championship. So you have got to be a complete team, and especially as you're moving from the Pac to the Big Ten. And it's interesting to see the hiring process that Lincoln Riley went through. Some of these coaches, I'm excited to see how they can help the Trojans transition from a team that had a bad defense to a team that's now putting defense at the forefront of importance and saying, okay, we have got to be a complete football team in order to maximize the talent we have on offense. Because if not, we're just going to try and outscore people. And that's not a recipe that typically is going to win a national championship if you can't stop your opponent. So it's going to be fascinating to see the USC Trojans this year. I am going to be watching closely to see how this defense continues to evolve. But if you are a USC fan, early reviews of Coach Henderson have got to be encouraging. Everything I say still stands, but you listen to a Braylon Shelby who's already laying praise at the feet of Coach Henderson, saying he's already coming in here teaching us things we didn't know. He hasn't even been there a year. Anytime you can get a guy that has that innate understanding of what it takes to be successful, and having worked with individuals like an Aaron Donald, who, by the way, was in attendance this weekend as Eric Henderson's guest, that has got to be a pitch that moves the needle. And so I'm going to be watching closely to see what other moves USC can try and make on the recruiting trail, because we know USC's offense is probably going to be really, really good. That's the calling card of Lincoln Riley. The question is, how is your defense going to be? And with coaches like this, I'm super excited to see how they're going to try and implement change, because that is exactly what's going to be happening at USC, trying to implement change, and I'm excited to see how successful they will be. But what does this mean for the Trojans on the recruiting trail? Well, this is a recruiting win, quite frankly, that I call a snowball effect prospect. And what I mean when I say that is when you roll a snowball down the hill, it continues to get bigger as it picks up more and more snow. Justus Terry is one of those guys that people are going to want to play with. People are going to sit up in their seat and say, wait a second now. USC just flipped a 5-star defensive lineman from the state of Georgia, from the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that is known for their hard-nosed defense, that's known for their ability to compete for national championships, especially over the past 5 years. USC flipped a kid from that school? What's going on there? And we talk about the fear of missing out in terms of a society, but make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the fear of missing out is prevalent in recruiting as well. If you're a prospect and you've just heard that, you might sit up in your chair and say, well, man, I need to get out there and see what that pitch is. If it's enough to flip Justus Terry, what else could it be? So it's interesting to see what other moves USC will make as they continue to try and build the defensive side of the ball. They currently have 2 prospects committed in the 2025 class, but luckily for USC fans, they're both 5 stars. Now, for the Georgia Bulldogs, what does this mean? First and foremost, this is something you never want to have happen. If you lose a guy that's a top 10 player in the nation, that's never a good thing. But if you are Georgia, one thing we have always got to acknowledge when we talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, this is a team and one of the few teams in college football that is somewhat equipped to handle a loss like this. What I mean is Georgia's going to recruit at an elite level. This is something we know to be true. Since Kirby Smart has got there, they put together top recruiting classes, and I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon. And so if you are Georgia, yes, this is a hit. There's no argument that Justus Terry is a guy that you would rather have in your class than not have in your class. But at the end of the day, the Georgia Bulldogs are going to continue pounding the trail and going to continue getting recruiting wins, and I can't wait to see what that looks like for the Dogs as well. But I really can't wait to hear from all of you. This is going to be a fascinating college football season with all the change, and one of the biggest questions I have and one of the things I'm most excited to see in all of college football is how are these defensive changes being implemented at USC? What will that look like? How much will USC's defense be improved? How much are they going to really pound the trail and go after these top defensive prospects, and how successful will they be? But waking up on a Sunday morning to flipping a top 10 prospect in the nation from a team like Georgia, well, that's got to feel good for USC fans, and I can't wait to hear about it. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.